And welcome everybody to the Construction Tech Tuesday. Thanks for being here. Today is an exciting show. We're gonna have Matt Reisinger, Stephen Baczek, and Jake Bruton talk about a thermally broken deck and other cool stuff from this project in Missouri. And I wanted to just say a couple words about Passive House Accelerator for those of you who are new to this platform. We're a collaborative online platform for sharing innovation and thought leadership in passive house design and construction. And we publish articles, interviews, we produce weekly virtual confabs like this one with Passive House pioneers and other high performance building experts from around the world. We elevate the work and programming of the passive house movement's leaders, practitioners, and organizations through interviews, articles, social media campaigns, video, podcasts, you name it. And our aim is to catalyze zero carbon building by accelerating the adoption of Passive House. And our Construction Tech Tuesdays are hosted by co-hosts Sean St. Amour, Kevin Brennan, Mark Willey, and we have launched this Construction Tech Tuesday to share the technique, and the technology of Passive House construction tech. So each week we'll welcome guest practitioners to dive into the details of practice with a builder and tradesperson as our target audience. So we welcome folks from all corners of the construction and design world to join us each week, and we're very happy you are here. And with that, I'll hand it off. Thank you.
All right, guys. So welcome to Construction Tech Tuesday. I'm Kevin Brennan. I own and operate Brennan Insulation and Air Tightness, and I get to work on lovely passive house projects here in New York City. Construction Tech Tuesday is here to highlight high-performance construction and the fundamentals of building science. And the guys that are going to be hosted on the show tonight, Steve Baczek, Jake Bruton, and all the lovely work. Some of the video have Matt Reisinger in there from the Build Show. These guys are all over the internet doing videos about high-performance construction. I have run into Matt and Steve, I believe, at Building Science Summer Camp. We brushed shoulders together, but I wasn't really willing to be like, hey, I watched your videos. I think I'm cool. So it's an honor to have you guys on the show. They are also run an amazing podcast. It's called the Unbuilt It Podcast, and they share great technical knowledge and dive deep into topics like that. So it's an honor to have you guys on and to show the actual work that you guys are doing out there. And I'll leave it up to Sean.
Hey everybody, I'm Sean St. Amour. I usually just skip right into the good stuff, but I just want to just give a little bit of who I am and what I've done. Been in a passive house since 2014 when I took the consulting course. And in 2017, I really dove into passive house. I took the tradesperson course and pretty much traveled around and went to every conference that was out there. And ever since, just can't get enough of it. And so great to have another event. We're into week 3 of the Passive Accelerator Construction Tech. And let's hear about the good stuff. Mark, off to you, my friend.
You've all heard from Zach and Kevin and Sean. Michael's quiet in the background, but that doesn't mean he's short of words. Many moons ago in a little town called Wisconsin Dells, I ran across this gentleman by the name of Stephen Baczek. And I was a loudmouth carpenter that had all the answers until there was someone that had more answers that happened to be an architect with a lot more experience, and my mouth got quiet. I know that's hard to believe, but my mouth got quiet. And
very hard to believe.
Yeah, thank you for that. And so I met Stephen there, and it wasn't until this summer that I had a chance to meet Matt. And then a few weeks ago, I was in Missouri, and I got to hang out with Jake. We've been talking for quite a while, but we got to actually meet in Missouri. So the footage you're going to see tonight is from this incredible hilltop project that Jake did in Missouri with Stephen. And there's backstory that will come out tonight. If there's people on the accelerator that haven't met Stephen or Jake or Matt, you know that there's never a shortage of words. You know that they're not shy around the camera, and you know that their attention to detail and delivering a project above and beyond expectation is always expected. So Zach has an incredible video to start us off with. After the video, we're going to go to a screen share and then hang on to your seats because Steven is going to take you on a ride, and Jake will probably try to push him off his game. So without further ado, let's start the video.
What are you guys doing to me? Hey, everybody. Welcome out to the Hilltop Arrow Project. It's me, Matt Reisinger. I'm here with my good friends, Steve Baczek and Jake Bruton. And we're out here to talk a little bit about what's happening out here. No, you know that's not true, right?
That's true.
We got Matt, Jake, and Steve. So,
people get us confused all the time because the three of us look like brothers.
That's exactly right. Brothers from a different mother. But hey, look what I got behind me here. Beautiful cantilever deck, but that's only half the story. That completes the architectural aesthetic. But what we're really going to talk about here is the building science behind it, right? The fact that nothing connects that deck to the house except this base plate and 4 bolts on this side, the 4 bolts and base plate on that side to the concrete pier. We have a fully thermally broken deck system here that Jake managed on the project, built by Russell Built. And what do you think, guys?
Impressive, Steve. I like it, man. Your guy did a real nice job, Jake.
You know, it would have been really easy to just run a couple big, long steel beams from underneath the house, straightening out. And we actually saw it. We drove past a project a while ago that had steel running inside to outside, and we all just
shook our heads.
That thermal bridge, that connectivity from in to out is what we're trying to avoid. So when Steve says we're mounted here, this is not envelope, this is just foundation, and there's a void that you can't see that it's all the way through. There's no point of contact. There's no sharing what happens out here with what happens in here, and that gives us just a little bit more control.
I like it, man. And it was fun to see when you guys installed this. They craned it in this morning, and Russell Built, who built it, and Jake were on site, and man, it like dropped right onto those pins like it was always meant to be. How'd you get that to happen, Jake?
That was what we call planning. That was
I'm not familiar with that thing.
That was when we talked about the 8 bolts is what everybody keeps saying. There's 8 bolts holding this thing on. That steel plate, we had the fabricator make 3 of those steel plates out of plywood with the same bolt pattern that he was going to use. I got 2 of them to wet set these J bolts in the concrete, and he kept one at his shop. And then after we got them in place, we came out and pulled lines and measurements. And then after we were framed here, we also took elevations and we're able to just do the math basically and make any micro adjustments for those bolts not being perfect. And like you said, it slid right down without anybody beating on it with a hammer or trying to force it. It was gorgeous. It was success.
Well done. Also interesting to note, from a builder perspective, pre-painted, right? So everything's done on the job. He's not trying to spray it or field finish it. He did it in his shop. All he's got to do is put the decking on, and you're basically complete at this point, right?
Yeah, he even went ahead and pre-drilled so that he could mount the decking from below. So
Smart.
He's got it figured out, and he really took it to heart when we gave him the plans. Steve gets full credit for it. Steve gave him every single measurement.
Is that right?
Yeah, Emmett said I had like 2 things that I had to take a measurement to figure out what they were, but other than that, it was Steve's
Steve.
baby.
That feels good, man.
It looks awesome. Execution is awesome. It's really important to understand that when you look at a project like this, and I'm obviously standing here with 2 really great builders, but no one person is the success story behind something. That's like right. even like this cantilever deck. I could come up with the wildest dreams. The structural engineer played a part in making it work structurally. Then took that information, put it into some drawings, gave it to Jake. Jake had to make it work financially for the homeowner. Then he had to work with Russell to make the thing actually happen and get built and get installed. None of this stuff is by accident. It is all a process of planning, but more importantly, it's a process of teamwork. And for the young builders out there and young architects starting out, don't think you go this alone. All of these success stories, the best success stories, are a team effort. That's the only way you're going to get them to happen.
Impressive, guys. Well done over here.
Are you going to say on the build show now?
Do I say on the build show? I only do that on YouTube, right?
Or do I say on the build show?
You
Because
say
I
it, I
started
think.
out with Matt Rising,
Yeah,
but I did dump it to you. But
I think you
anyways,
do it.
on the build show.
That's way better than the way I say it. Bomber.
I like this. I like when it comes in and we get
Yeah,
We'll
but
get
they
a
spelled
company
arrow
plug.
wrong. I
No,
would have got a new
easy.
shirt.
AAROW. So the phone book gets it right.
For our audience out there, the technology is a lot more in line than the humor. I'll tell you that much.
Hey, you be nice.
Touche, Mark. Touche.
Okay, so at this point, if you're not laughing, please leave the show. We'll get at you another time. And Stephen, if you could cue up the drawing, I think there's some contractors and architects that would love to learn from this thermally broken offsite produced. There it is. You have the floor, my man.
Well, hey, welcome everybody. Hey, Matt, how you doing, bud?
Good, brother.
Everybody, thank you very much for joining us this evening. You know, everybody had a lot of nice, kind words to say, but like I said in the video, the reality is anything we do, it's a team effort, and it's a team effort on multiple levels. We have this one project. It's a team effort. There's a team effort by our building industry. There's a team effort by all of the people that agree and align with passive house theories and thoughts. And, you know, together we can all make a difference. But to think that any one of us is solving the problem, I think, is kind of a naive approach. But, you know, anyways, I asked Mark if I could pull up a drawing. I was going to share some of the things with you on this house. So with that, just a really quick overview of the floor plan there. But you can see it's basically a giant wide open kitchen, dining room, family room space. We have entry, mudroom, powder room, some baths, closets, and then the bedroom, master bedroom is off as an appendage also on piers by itself. This square is the piece that goes down to a basement and the upper 2-story level. So it's basically a 3-bedroom house, 2 bedrooms, a bath, and a little bit of hall space with a study nook here that will have some built-ins. But one of the interesting parts of this project you can see here with the basement plan is that, you know, over half of the floor plan is suspended over the ground on those brick piers. And when Jake and I walked with the client a little over a year ago, and we talked about what should we do there, we literally stood here looking out over the trees here and say, I think we should build a house that starts as this giant mass and kind of deteriorates as we go out to the edge of that view, and we finish it somehow with a nice strong statement of being kind of dematerialized about as far as we could go. And so with that came this idea of we'll finish it with a deck, and you can see the deck here. And to complement the deck, we have this 1-in-12 pitch roof that also finishes with about an 11-foot cantilever on it. But you can see it gets tied all the way back to a girder truss here. So we bring it back. For all the nerdy building science people that I also align with, this is a 1-in-12 roof that's going to be fully vented, but we're not going to talk about those details. So I'm leaving it at that, because that's going to force Mark to have us come back and we'll talk about those details in the future. But I think I have it pretty well licked on how to vent a 1-in-12. I know a lot of building scientists would not agree with that concept at the start, but I think we have a good finish to it. But the couple things that I did want to point out was, notice that the deck here, sorry, I'm trying to just get it to the right scale for you. We have that last pier that steps down like you saw in the video. And the deck was designed solely that no part of the deck touches the building. There's actually that little bit of a space there on the outside of the rain screen and siding, and everything gets anchored to it, but then it tapers out and it creates that architectural aesthetic. So I think it's a really good blend of how the aesthetics of architecture can be really strong, but to ensure that the building is loved for a very long time and taken care of, we have to apply some sound building science practices so we don't build a deck there that is just going to fall off the building in 2 years or 5 years or be neglected. Again, you can see those details, and like Jake said, and Jake, feel free to jump in, but these are all the drawings that were associated with just to get that deck built, right? So we have a plan of the deck here, which is basically the two 8x8 steel posts with a what would we have, a 4x20, I believe, 4x20 beam that runs across, I'm sorry, 12x4
4x12.
Yeah, that runs across here, and all these 7-inch steel angles get welded to it, and they're all moment connections, but they basically cantilever the 8 feet out from that beam line. And then we have a little short stubby cantilever on the inside because I wanted to get the posts away from it. A couple things to point out from a building science perspective. Those of you that have heard me speak before, I'm really high on durability. I love energy efficiency, certainly, and I love health and comfort, but nothing gets me more warm and fuzzy than a nice durability water management package. So with these 7-inch angles, notice that we also provided a little drainage space in between. And I worked with Emmett, and we just put some 3/8 inch bar stock in there. And I think we have some pictures of that. But so we have the ability to drain, and we're not trapping water between the angles. Notice that even on top of the post, there's called out a little 1/2 inch slope so that we don't get any standing water sitting on there. I want this thing to be around a long time. I tell people that, I'm very selfish about my work in the idea that I want it to be around for a very, very long time. And some of you are asking, these are simple 12-inch J-bolts that come down into, we have a series of vertical bars and stirrups and horizontal bars that we worked with the structural engineer who, surprisingly, I sent these drawings to him, and I think Jake can attest to it, but he really didn't modify it a whole lot. He was able to work within what we were asking him to do, and he was very confident in it. And I took my 150-pound frame and put it out at the edge there and tested it personally. So that's to see if you all are paying attention. But getting back to the drawings, so we have that. I actually laid out all of the decking so that Emmett can pre-drill all of the flanges, and we're going to come with screws up through the bottom into that decking. And you can see here, this is a good shot of how that will happen. Basically, I mean, it's not a whole lot of magic. It's just, there's been a lot of discussions, and for those of you that were able to catch Christina Williamson and Justin talking about education, we have the knowledge to do all this stuff. We just need to educate our clients to the point that, they're satisfied in that we have to do this. And the team effort is such that if someone takes the time to scrutinize all of this information at this level, then you have people like Emmett that can sit in his shop and build this thing in a week, right? Because he's not sitting there scratching his head. He's not dismantling something because it was wrong or the dimensions were wrong. Everything is here for him. How the center lines of all the 7-inch angles, even the brackets, there were some larger details here of where the steel rods went and their spacing, right down to the dimensions of all the steel balusters and the plates. So all that information is there. And, I'm often heard saying also that, someone has to drive the bus. I think one of the major failures of what we do, and I say we as the building industry, is that some architects or designers will do drawings and then they pawn it off on the builder and say, yeah, well, I wash my hands, it's your problem now. And then the builder gives it to the HVAC contractor and says, hey, why don't you go put that design the HVAC system and put it in this house? And now the HVAC system's on him. Well, nobody's ever really driving the bus, and nobody's ever making sure that the HVAC guy and the plumber and the electrician and the steel guy are all in sync in knowing what they're doing, and the insulator. And again, here you can see that detail of it cantilevered out. Someone asked a while back, you know, boy, that must be a hell of a moment out there. But the reality is probably about a good half of the weight is in this first foot of the deck. So while it does stick out there, there's not a really big moment out here until maybe 2 or 3 of me climb out there and have a drink. But for the most part, very successful planning. And again, kudos to Jake and Emmett, because again, like they said in the video, you don't, you know, I could sit here and I can draw all this stuff, but someone still has to plan for it. Someone has to place those bolts. Someone has to make sure that that information is getting translated and executed to the highest level. So as the Patriots head coach would say, and some of you probably hate that, but you know, we all need to do our job. And the problem is there's a lot of people in our industry, at least I believe, in my personal opinion, that don't do their job, and some of them don't understand what their job is, which is a little disturbing to me. But a lot of them just simply don't choose to do their job. And I think there's a beauty in doing your job well and a passion.
I also, Steve, can I interrupt?
Yeah, no, sir.
The idea of the teamwork thing and doing your job is enormous, because these are clients that trust Steve and I. They've made it very clear from the beginning that they wanted to work with us, and they wanted a house built by us, and they value the same things that we value. And we were able to work through pre-construction services so that I was involved in the design phase as well as Steve, which meant my subcontractors, including Emmett with Russell Built, he was involved in the design phase. So Steve was able to go, hey, I'm thinking about this. What does your steel guy think? And I'm able to take that to my team and say, hey, is this doable? Are we going to have a problem here? What if we do this? What happens if he wants this? Like, what are the challenges? And when you have that team in place from the very beginning, that is a totally different thing than an architect handing you a set of plans and saying, hey, good luck. Call me when you're done. I want to see it.
I mean, I think that's, you know, that whole collaboration is certainly a very important part of our success. And when you're getting into passive house, which I've done numerous passive houses, that's, you know, just as much of a team effort, and your energy consultant and builder. And I think more so on the passive house side, it's the collaboration is more important, because there's a tendency or the ability to really run wild, and not in a good way, right? There's things that we can do. I've seen some houses, I've toured some passive houses by some builders, and I walk out and I say, there's really no takeaway here. That a lot of the stuff that they did was stuff that probably really isn't worth replicating. And I think if we're going to change the industry and we're really going to bring this around, we have to stop thinking about how to be the most exotic, but how to develop ideas and thoughts that are, you know, kind of more of a commodity type item. I mean, one of the beauties of this house, and I would say I would call it near passive house. It probably wouldn't quite make it. But the reality of this house, aside from the windows, everything came through Jake's lumberyard. There's not a lot of stuff in this house that is going to be crazy, special order, weight on it, or anything too crazy, even in detailing. You know, we do have some of the cool things, like, you know, we have the T-stud in our wall. And I don't know, Jake, do you want to talk about, or Matt, do you want to jump in and talk about the thermal breaks and performance of the wall?
Hey, Stephen and Jake, I think if we jump into the video before we get more into the screen share, it'll show the people the incredible planning and execution.
Well, let's do that. I didn't know we had more video. Shoot, go.
Yep. You can see that we didn't sheet the roof all the way out because we knew we were going to have to fish this sucker in there with the crane. Also along those lines, having a conversation with our window supplier today, I'm wishing we probably hadn't sheeted the roof yet, because it would have been easier to get that big patio door in there. But this was all planning on Emmett's part. Emmett is the gentleman in the background holding on to one of the columns. The idea that we got this thing to fit without having to nudge it at all was super impressive for me. That having 3 mounting points, or having 3 mounting plates, one for him to keep in his shop to use as a template and us to have the other 2, we were able to align the bolts. We put the bolts through it, set those in place, screwed them to our forms, and then poured concrete around them. So effectively we used those to place our J bolts. And that was like the best possible thing we could have had happen. It really, all we then had to do was take elevations off the concrete up to our subfloor that we had framed in place to decide how tall to cut those posts. And they actually ended up slightly offset because they were perfect. And then a concrete form blew out and we rebuilt. And when we rebuilt, I screwed it up a little bit. But because Emmett didn't put that plate on yet, we're able to make that adjustment and everything still just slid into place like we wanted.
I love you standing on the hill, Jake. So from the time the crane lifted this up until where we're at in this video, for those who weren't there, that's about 3 minutes ago. So Jake is still a kid in the candy store, but he's also wondering, is this going to work, right? There's pins and needles because we have
panic
to attach to.
That, so the guy in the high-vis jacket is our lumber salesman. And he just happens to also be friends with our metal fabricator. And he's like, yeah, I'll stop by while you're... So he was helping. For 4 weeks, the only thing out of his mouth while he's on the job site was 8 bolts. 8 bolts? 8 bolts. We're just doing 8 bolts. Just 8 bolts. And he was ready to be standing there when it failed. And I was very happy that he got to be there and it was correct. And you're right. At this point, I was still in total panic mode. I sat awake the night before trying to go to sleep, wondering whether or not this thing was going to slide into place. And then, of course, it's 10 times worse with, Matt and you and the whole T-Stub team being there to film it. That's the new challenge to our business where I'm like, oh, people are going to see this if I screw this up.
So where I'm filming from, I'm down the hill. Stephen Baczek is next to me, and he's saying, "Come on, just bring it in, right?" He's like, "It'll work. Just go." So right now we're at literally 5 minutes from the time the crane lifted this off till here. The whole install took less than, I believe, 8 minutes until it was set, and Jake actually got out his level. So we're realigning inside of that spot. And take it away, Jake.
I was really concerned that they were going to hit the house. At this point, I was less concerned that the deck was going to fit, and I was more concerned that they were going to screw up my pretty concrete. This is a new crane operator that we hadn't worked with before. And so I was again, it went to a different version of panic mode. And full disclosure, Mark said it took 8 minutes. And I secretly hope that Emmett is on watching this evening because I sent it to him.
I'm going to go watch it by myself from me. You can
Emmett showed up
you can exit yourself
without the right socket size.
Polite.
He brought one socket instead of his entire set. And thankfully, Emmett's shop is only about 15 minutes from here. So I was just like, okay, crane's going to hold it. Go get the right socket. And he just jumped in his truck and took off. And I was like, if that's the worst possible thing that happens today, I'm completely fine with that. That's the best possible thing. And the bolts are just big enough that nobody had an adjustable wrench so that we could even snug it down, anything. Like, I was just like, oh, this is great. And the lumber salesman's standing there going, my shop's another 10 minutes past Emmett. I got one at the store if he wants to go buy one. I was surprised how perfect it went. I have, this is ever so slightly vulgar, so plug your ears. I have what I call the 6 Ps. Proper planning prevents piss poor performance. And that's my version of the 6 Ps. And this is the example of what my 6 Ps are. And this is, weeks worth of conversations between Steve and Emmett and myself and the engineer. And I got to give credit to Emmett. He knocked it out of the park.
It's a beautiful work of craftsmanship, and the teamwork that went into it was amazing. From my point of view and looking at it, the beauty in is that you designed out a thermal bridge. So you eliminated the thermal bridge in essence. Otherwise, you would have had to have done some thermally broken isolated stuff.
Yeah, we would have had to just gone to a traditional deck if we weren't gonna be connecting it. I think the best way to think of it is they share a foundation, but they're not the same thing.
Should fit right in that middle bay.
Should fit.
It's almost like it was planned out, huh, Steven?
No. Better to be lucky than good. Remember that. Almost. All right. As you can see, we have this steel deck system out here, but the couple things of note are two major components to this deck. One, it's a fully cantilevered system. So there's no supports underneath me here. The two supports are the two 8x8 posts on the end that get connected to the concrete piers. But that's only half the story. The real story is when you're building a high performance home is that we have all this steel out here which has the potential to drain the house of heat, as in heat moving from warm to cold. This will be ice cold in the winter, we know that because it's steel. But how do we make it so that we're not going to be stealing that heat from the house? Now, a lot of decks that we have seen in the past, it's real easy to run a couple LVLs back into the house and have them fly out, but then we have this giant thermal break that we're taking back into this floor system. So, as in any house I design, there's literally thousands of questions that have to be answered. And we're always in search of what's the best answer, and sometimes we can achieve the very best answer. Sometimes we have to settle because not everything can be the best answer, right? So in this particular case, this is the best answer. It's a fully thermally broken steel deck. So if you look down here, you can see no part of this steel deck touches the house. So there is basically a full trough here. The sheathing will get built up, the decking will go out to the sheathing, but nothing on this deck is going to touch the house. So it's a 100% pure thermal break. From a high performance house standpoint, that's always very important, right? Build the box very well, and then attach everything to it. Until next time, Steve Baczek from Columbia, Missouri. Hey everybody, welcome. Steve Baczek, architect here. I'm out here at what we're calling our Hilltop Aero project. I'm on location down here in Columbia, Missouri. And as you can see, there's a beautiful view behind me. I'm standing out here at the outer limits of our 10-foot cantilevered steel deck.
All right.
I think it's worth, Mark, I think it's worth pointing out that, you know, I say this every time I give a talk, and even I think about it every time I sit behind my computer, but the line of build the box and then attach everything to it. I know it sounds very fundamental, but it is that fundamental. One of, so just a real quick tidbit. Those that don't know my history, I was the first employee at Building Science Corporation. I worked there for 10 years with Betsy and Joe. And I have literally thousands of takeaways. It was a privilege to work there. But one of the ones that rises to the top that Joe would always say is, it's building science, it's not rocket science. We know what the answer is. We just need to provide the solution on how to get there. We know that the way to build a good house is to build the conditioned box and then attach everything to it. But then we like to add decks and all these crazy things that we want to pierce the box with. So, you know, as designers, it becomes our monster to deal with. And unfortunately, if we come up with crazy ideas, then we have to develop crazy solutions, right, to solve for that. But it is that simple. It's for those of you that are maybe have a few years into building science and feel overwhelmed, or as Peter Yost would say, you know, you feel like you're drinking from a fire hose. It really, building science is probably a dozen fundamental concepts. And then from there, we tend to want to complicate it a little bit more, but it really isn't much more complicated than that.
He's right. Build a box and attach something to it. I think one of the reasons that I like working with Steve is and no offense to anybody in the room, I don't know if this is true about anybody in the room. There seems to be some sort of aesthetic that is attached to green architecture, that if you're going to build passive house, or if you're going to build very energy forward thinking houses, they have to look a certain way. We can't just build a house that's pretty and it function. It has to have this specific aesthetic. And I think that that's one of the things that, like, we're trying to build a really pretty house that is also really close to qualifying for passive house. And I feel like that for some reason is lost when we get to the nerd level of people that even understand what passive house is. For some reason, I don't know why it is. Maybe it's because the energy becomes so important that we forget that people are going to live there, and people are going to look at it from the street, and people are going to come home to it, and we want them to come home and it not just be like, oh, my energy bill is nothing this month, I'm excited to live here. It should be like, this is an awesome house, I love this house. All these things combined to make one house. So I think it's really important that Steve gets credit for that as well.
I'm just going to jump in. I'm sorry. Because Mark, I know you've commented on this statement that I'm about to say. When I sit behind the computer, and regardless of the project, there's literally thousands of decisions to be made. And we have to start choosing the right decisions. And I know for some people, they're going to say, well, what is the right decision? It's hard to make that. But that gets back to those handful or dozen of fundamental building science concepts. But if you're a designer or architect or even builder, the last thing you want to do is paint yourself into a corner where you all of a sudden wake up and say, well, what do I do now? It's, we have to have that series of decisions. Someone about a year ago, I was chatting with someone, and they asked me what I thought personally was the biggest problem with the building industry. And I think it is that we've never been taught how to make a set of decisions and how to apply a certain intellect or a certain program to how do we make those decisions, right? What's the number one thing you worry about? What's the number two thing you worry about? What's the number three thing you worry about? And when you start developing those sets of concepts that guide your design, I think that we would find that the industry would be a pretty easy place to navigate. And we would be able to do really great things. But I still think the decision-making process is pretty fractured in our industry.
I just wanted to point out how amazing it was that you guys gained the trust of the owner early on to go through that pre-construction process. I could see I always, in my talkings with potential clients and stuff, I always say every high-performance project has a high-performance owner that's willing to trust and put the team together, and to have people be professionals and make the right decisions for their project. And I could very easily see if that project went out to bid, the first thing that some other general contractor with a different point of view and maybe not the same amount of training or insight on building science would say, like, let's just make a simple deck. And they wouldn't understand the consequences of the 15, 20 years later of how that deck could rot and what it would take to reinforce that deck. So, I mean, I applaud you guys on that. And just the pre-construction alone, I think, really takes you guys light years ahead. And to point out that, again, that you completely avoided the thermal bridge. The principles of thermal bridging is avoidance or interrupt it with a thermal break, and you avoided it by making a very smart design.
Kevin, let me piggyback on that. I was going to say something really similar, Kevin. I think that this project in particular has a pretty interesting client story that hasn't been told yet. Let me tell it if you don't mind, Jake and Steve. But this client, I got to speak with the client kind of separately for 10 or 15 minutes, and I asked them, like, how'd you find the property? How did you find Jake? How did the project start? And this client's a woodworker. He is a professional woodworker, does it for a living, appreciates craftsmanship. And long before he bought the property, he kind of started thinking, well, I should try and find a builder in Columbia that I like and trust. He's kind of searching for builders. He asked friends.
He's on Instagram. He's searching for builders. He comes across Jake's feed, kind of stalks Jake on Instagram for a while and realizes, hey, this guy also is a similar craftsman. Now, Jake's not posting pictures of dovetailed joinery every day, but we are craftsmen in what we do as well. He very quickly trusts Jake, feels like Jake's my builder. I like what he's doing. I really dig these houses that Jake's building that happen to be really comfortable, really high performance. The client never once said, Jake, I want a passive house, or Jake, I want an ultra efficient house. No, he wanted a Jake Bruton house because he realized Jake was an excellent builder, that he built with a high level of integrity in all senses of that word. And then basically when he bought the property, he said to his wife, hey, I know which builder we should hire. We should hire this guy, Jake. He's great. And so then Jake, I'm kind of fast forwarding a little bit here in the essence of time. So Jake gets hired, and then Jake says, hey, we could talk to a local architect, of course, but there's this architect that I work with a lot. He's really good. I think we should hire Steve. And the client's like, well, I trust you. Great. Let's hire Steve. And I think there's some interesting lessons there for all of us. My assumption is I'm preaching to the choir here. This is a bunch of builders, architects, maybe some passive house consultants. How do we get those cool projects? How do we get to build for clients who have the interest and the desire? Most of the time, they are not going to the Passive House Institute US website and going, hey, where's a consultant or a builder who's certified in my town that I can hire? Now, I'm not saying that doesn't happen. Certainly that might, but they're probably going, I want a really well-built house. Who should I hire? Friends, coworkers, neighbors, Instagram, whatever. They're finding you as the architect, the builder, the consultant. And not necessarily because we can get them a certified house, but because we do all these things that lead to the outcome, which is a really well-built house that doesn't have problems, that's really comfortable, that has low energy bills, and maybe also has these other benefits like a low carbon footprint, or like a green built house, whatever that term even means anymore, because it doesn't mean a whole lot to the general public, in my opinion. So I think that's an interesting part of this story, is that this client came to Jake through Jake's social media outreach. Jake just recently hit 10,000 subscribers on Instagram. But my guess is this guy found Jake when he had 2,000, right, Jake, or somewhere in there, or 1,500 maybe. And so my point is, we as a community need to lose our ego when it comes to posting, or I'm shy about X, Y, and Z, and just say, look, this is part of business. I need to promote my business, whether you're an architect, a builder, whatever. I need to talk about well-built houses and what it takes and my part of that process, so that people who are in the market for my services, whatever town, wherever you build, are going to find you, because Google is very local. And that's my story as well. YouTube's turned into a whole nother business for me with the Build Show, but it was just as profitable for my home building company in year 2 when my videos got 40 views as it is today when I'm upset if I don't get 40,000 views on a video. And I'm trying to be the megaphone for our industry, for you guys, for me to say, hey, we should demand general public better houses that maybe are passive house certified, or that are being built with passive house principles. When someone interviews Steve Baczek for an architect project, I'm trying to say, hey, this is not a regular architect. This is an architect who really gets the details, who really gets building science, who's going to build you, or is going to design you a house that I can really build, because now I have the details to build it well, and it's going to be designed well from the start. Sorry, Mark, I took a little bit of a soapbox stand there, but I knew that I was preaching to the choir with this crowd. I recognize a lot of your names and faces. So this is just a reminder for all of us as a team, as this Passive House Accelerator group, to get out there on a daily basis and not just talk about the nuts and bolts of passive house, but also remember that a lot of the folks that we're talking to have no idea what it means. And we need to encourage them to build better and to build to these same standards.
So Matt, the mission statement for Passive House Accelerator is smaller than what you just said, but the 3 points that I heard echoing was share, right? Share, bring it together as a team, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bring that forward as attributes to their healthy and comfortable building. And then I always hear something, even if it's not said, and that is technical, technique, and technology. And that's why we're all here tonight. And the three of you resemble that comment very well.
Hey, Mark, one of the things that I think we can add to that too, and this is going to circle around and close it nicely with Kevin's opening comments on this, is education. There's two parts of this. One, I want people to recognize that, Jake's not living outside of Boston in Cambridge or something where there's, probably 1,000 people that would want this house, could afford this house very easily. He's down in Missouri. When I travel the country and lecture, one of the comments I always get is, yeah, Steve, that's really good up in the Northeast where people buy into that stuff and they have the money for those details. But Jake is doing this outside of Columbia, Missouri. And he's doing it because the clients are educated in what we're doing. We have a talk, and I have clients also that come to me and never even knew triple glazed windows existed. And then next thing you know, we're putting triple glazed windows in and enhanced insulation packages and stuff because we educate them. To just have a client come and say, oh, I want a house, and not have the conversation of what level do we want to take this house to, and to have the answers and the legitimacy to provide sound conversation with them in that education process, I think is extremely important to have and to get them to buy in. I have clients in the past that have raised their budget 10-15% because they bought into concepts of enhanced insulation, better air quality, ventilation systems, better windows for comfort reasons, not necessarily because they're going to save $50 a month on their electric bill. They want it because we can show them the value in the things that they really understand, like health and comfort and durability and quality. So I think that's really important. So
thanks, Steve. That's great. Those are great words. And once again, you guys awesome. And we appreciate you guys coming on the show. You guys are the big names in the industry out there, and love the podcast. And Matt, you guys are killing it on YouTube and everything like that. Oh, the Build Show Network, I should say. And
thanks,
we
Kevin.
really appreciate you guys being here. I grew up playing sports, and one of my coaches told me that everything in life has technique. So even if you're sweeping a floor or you're doing a move in wrestling or shooting on a hockey net, there's a technique to it. And you guys are obviously showing those techniques. But Jake, the craftsmanship is remarkable, and Steve, the craft in your designs and the principles behind it are shown very well. And Matt, your builds and your house down in Austin, best of luck building that. I look forward to seeing that. And thank you guys very much. But we're coming up on towards the hour. Mark, Sean, do we have anything more, right?
Yeah, we've got a good lineup of people that have asked questions, so don't go anywhere. We've got it all organized, or at least I think I have. You can see the list there. But in this event, one of the things that we want to try to do before we wrap up the hour is thank people that have done some amazing things for us. And in this time, it's my turn to give a big thank you to one of the educators who taught me about passive house. And so we come back to 2017, I took the Passive House Tradesperson course. We had two amazing educators, and actually I think both of them are here in the audience, so bravo for us for wrangling them in here. But one of the ones I wanted to give huge props to is this lovely lady, Sandra Roller, who is amazing in so many different levels. So just to give this out, okay, so certified furniture maker, registered architect in Germany. Now she's also one in Canada. She was one of the first certified tradespersons in Canada, as well as certified designers. And she's just done an amazing job of being in the trenches, promoting Passive House in Canada. And I'm so lucky that I've had the opportunity to learn from her and to still learn from her. And hopefully in the next few weeks, we'll be able to showcase one of the projects she's been heavily involved in and one of the cool details that she had to figure out. So if we can all just give a little golf clap to Sandra, because we are really lucky for what she has done to the Passive House community. So thank you, Sandra. Stick around, people. We're going to wait for the overtime to dive into all these questions. So don't go anywhere.
All right. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And thanks so much to Matt, Stephen, and Jake for all this. And we're looking forward to the questions and answers section here. Our work would be impossible. Our mission we would not be able to achieve our mission without the support of our sponsors. So I want to give them a shout out right now. Our founding sponsors are 475 High Performance Building Supply, Baczek Ingwe Architects, Mitsubishi Electric Train HVAC US, RDH Building Science, Stow Corp, and Zola Windows. Our stakeholder partner is NYSERDA, and our patron sponsors are Innotech Windows and Doors, Morrison Hirschfield, and Partel. So tomorrow we have the Global Passive House Happy Hour, at the same time as the Tech Tuesday, and it's going to feature a presentation by FIAS staff about their upcoming FIAS Plus 2021 certification. This is some really exciting innovations going on, including a prescriptive pathway for single family projects, both new and retrofit. So they're looking for input. So come with your questions, come with your curiosity. It's going to be a great session tomorrow. And then on Monday, December 14th, we're having our Passive House Prefab Summit #2 with new guests, new format, and lots of great information. Sean St. Amour will be reprising his role as moderator, and I will include links to both of those events in chat shortly. Thank you.